Sometimes I feel that way. Good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. We're going to be starting from the Gemara at the bottom of Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, and we're going to be learning a lot of Gemara. There's a lot of material to cover. We're going to be going toward the bottom of Daf Pei Dalet Amud Beis. So we have quite a bit of learning to go. We're going to move at a pretty fast clip and try to make those who need the 9:30 available, of which I am one, to be able to make it. So here we go. We were speaking in our Mishnah on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph about a disease called bulmus. Bulmus was a disease of hunger, and it led to blindness. So says the Gemara, 10 lines from the bottom, Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, how did we know when he was able to see? What level of sight do you need? Well, we take vision tests all the time. What type of sight do you need? Says the Gemara, when his eyes are able to see the difference between some good food and some bad food. And then Amar Abaye uvetaima, not only that, it was time as well. It appears that this disease also took away the capacity to taste, something that we're familiar with. Tana Rabbana Misha'ach, so if someone was sick with this hunger disease, we would feed him the least severe form of isser that we could. So you have to be holding cup. Like, look at this first example. Tevel unevela. You have untithed food and you have nevela. Instinctively, I would have eaten the nevela, right? I would have eaten the tevel. That would be my first reaction is to eat the tevel. It's not shechted right. Says the Gemara, yeah, but tevel, you're chayiv misi b'dei shamayim. And nevela, you're only chayiv malkos. So says the Gemara, psak halacha ma'achilin oso nevela. It's crazy. Could you imagine such a thing? Someone's starving, you're like, go to Burger King. It's unbelievable. Before you eat tevel, incredible. Tevel u'shvis. What about two things like tevel and shvis? So there we eat the shvis because the shvis is an isser aseh, different construct of isser, as opposed to tevel, which is an isser d'oraisa. What about tevel u'truma? This is a big discussion. Tevel u'truma, if the only foods that this person can eat to get them out of bulmus, to get them out of this disease, is tevel or truma, untithed food, or truma, which is specific to a kohen, tanoihi. That's a machlokes. Titania, 5 lines from the bottom, Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, the Brisa reads, Machilin oso tevel and machilin oso truma. The Tanakama says we give him tevel and not truma. Ben tema omer truma v'lo tevel. That's the machlokes and the tanoim. Then comes along Rabba and makes a very, very strange statement. Amar Rabba, if you're able to eat regular food, everyone would then agree, that would be better. Really? It's chulin. Of course it's better. So the Gemara is going to be bothered by Rabba's very strange categorization of this type of machlokes. Then the Gemara says, Ki pligi, Rabba says, when do we have a machlokes b'delo efshar b'chulin? When we're not able to make food into chulin, mar savar tevel chamur, one says that the tevel is more severe, chai misi b'dei shamayim, and mar savar truma chamur, one says that truma is chamur, which also has misi b'dei shamayim. How do we distinguish between the two? Mar savar tevel chamur, aval truma chazi l'kohen, l'chol ha'pachos, at least truma is mutter for somebody, right? It's mutter at least for the kohanim. It's not categorically usher like treif. It's not like that. It's just usher for all non-kohanim. Umar savar truma chamura. Why is truma worse? Because about tevel efshar lesakune. By tevel, as long as you can go through the process of tikkun, you can make it mutter for everyone. So that's how Rabbah frames out this machlokes in our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, efshar b'chulin, Rabbah, what are you talking about? Obviously, efshar b'chulin, that it would be mutter under those circumstances. Of course, that would be the ideal way to feed this person who's sick. Says the Gemara, pshita. Answers the Gemara, lo tzricha b'Shabbos. The reason why we need this case is to teach us that on Shabbos, one is allowed to do the tithe on Shabbos in order to remove the status of tevel. Says Gemara, b'Shabbos not mi pshita, tiltul midrabanan hu. It's only an isser derabanan to do the tiltul, to do the activity of separating, even though it's true, it's similar to makeh b'patish or tikkun maneh, as we refer to it. So tikkun maneh in this frame is only a din derabanan. Tikkun maneh of an actual kli is an isser deraisa, but that's for sure an isser derabanan. But here it's only din derabanan. So let's do the isser derabanan and feed him the food. That's much better. Says Gemara, hacha b'maya skinan. What case were we dealing with? The whole subject was a din derabanan, but atzitz she'enu nakuv derabanan. We were dealing with a case of tevel that grew inside a flower pot that had no hole in its bottom. Namely, it wasn't getting its sustenance from the ground itself, only from that was exclusively limited to what was within the flower pot. And it would be similar to a flower pot inside our homes because our homes are not made of dirt. So therefore, that whole status is derabanan. And then the real question was as follows. If you had to do this and you still had to eat the whole food, because that's how much food you needed to get out of your disease, then mar savar tevel chamur, mar savar truma chamur. Under those circumstances, some would say the tevel was more chamur, and some say the truma is more chamur. Just remains a machlokes tanoim. Now, this idea that you need to do meiser, which seems to be implied from our Gemara, that says that even on Shabbos you can do the meiser, that itself is subject to machlokes tanoim. 5 lines down, Pei Gimel Amud Beis. Lema tanoihi titanya mishanashcha nachash. If a person God forbid gets bitten by a snake, so then what do we do? Koren lo rofa mimakom lemakom. You hop on your phone. Any malachas mutter to get a doctor. Umakar los atarnagolas, you tear open a tarnagolas and put it on top of the wound, the medicine of the day. If it goes as a noas accretion, you can uproot leeks from the ground and put it on top of the wound. So you can feed him whatever he needs. Vein sarach la'aser, Rebbe. We see here the Rebbe does not require meiser under those emergent circumstances, whereas in our Mishnah, it seemed to be the case that we do require meiser. And this brisa, that's all shita number one. Shita number two in the brisa with the snake bite says, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Omer lo ye'achal ad she'aser. So therefore, says the Gemara, name a Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Hivlo Rebbe. Maybe our Mishnah is like this second shita by the case of the snake bite, where we do say that you have to do meiser, and it can't be like Rebbe who says that there is no meiser. That doesn't fit with our Mishnah. So says the Gemara, no, if you tell Rebbe, we could even make our Mishnah fit like Rebbe. Why? Because the machlokes of Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon in regards to the snake bite was unique. Ad kamokama Rebbe Hassam. The only time Rebbe said what he said, that there doesn't need to be meiser by the snake bite case, is ela le'inyan meiser yerek derabanan. That's only where we're talking about vegetables, and the vegetables of the meiser on vegetables is a din derabanan. About the meiser dagan, the tevel doraisa. But when it comes to meiser dagan, which is what our Mishnah is talking about, that's how we get out of this disease of bulmus. You have to actually eat grain. So then, because the tevel is doraisa, filu Rebbe moda di isharis le'ba'atis she'enu naku, that if we were to have allowed a person to eat food out of an atis she'enu naku without meiser, then we'd be concerned that asi lemechal ba'atzis shu'unaka. We'd also be concerned that they would also do so out of a container that has a hole in the bottom. That's a big problem because that's tevel deraisa at that point because it's connected to the ground, and therefore even Rebbe would agree in our case that we would require meiser. Therefore, there's no stira between the two cases, and that therefore that's the conclusion. It seems to be the case that if you, according to this Tana at least, that if you were to have tevel and truma, so the Tana who holds you out, you're allowed to eat the tevel. You have to first do meiser on the tevel. That would be the better food to eat. Truma, you have to leave. All right, we're 1/3 of the way down. Pei Gimel Amud Beis says the Gemara Tana Rabbana Misha Achsa Bulmus. More about this disease, this hunger disease that leads to the inability to see. So the halacha is, or the suggestion of the Gemara is, I should say, get the guy a tray of candy. Wonderful idea. Give him some sweets. This makes a person be able to see again. Where do we know this from? Says the Gemara. Even though we don't have a categorical proof, we have a good mention of it. And this is from a pasuk in Shmuel. The pasuk reads, ki oru einai ki ta'amti me'at devash hazeh. I'm now able to see because I tasted some of this honey. So says the Gemara, well, why did you say it's a beautiful raya? Says the Gemara, well, if we have academic integrity, we'll recognize that pasuk's not speaking about our disease. And that's what the Gemara says. That case where he was eating the sweets and he was now able to see better, it was a sugar rush, but it wasn't a solution to a medical problem. He was just eating sweets. Good for him. All right, so Amar Abaye lo shanu ela la'achar achila. The only time that the sweets work, this is the Gemara to show little kids, the only time that the sweets work is after you eat your meal. But if you were to eat the sweets before your meal, it wouldn't help you. First, with the very long lines, base halfway down, because the pasuk says, they found an Egyptian in the field, they brought him to David, they brought him bread and he ate, and they gave him water to drink, and after he ate his meal and drank water, then they gave him some sweets, they gave him some pressed figs, 2 clusters of raisins. And then he got all better. He hadn't eaten for 3 days. So when do we see the effect of the sweets? Only after the meal. So that's Abaye's qualification. If you have bulmus, eat the sweets, but only eat it after you eat a meal. Says the Gemara, 3 lines into the wide lines, another story. If a person were to have this disease of bulmus, this is gevaldik, a sheep's tail, a fatty sheep's tail, dipped in honey. Sounds like some of the beef jerky we had on Shabbos. We'll have some for our siyum. I hope nobody has the disease. We should just have it as a luxury. No bulmus, just to aliyah b'dvash. I'll ask our caterer. We're not doing this one on our own. The Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshua Amar Asolas Nekiya b'dvash. A person could even take flour, fine flour with honey that would also help for the disease of bulmus. Rav Papa Amar Afilu Kimcha Desar V'Divsha. Even an inferior type of grain like barley flour with honey, that would work as well. More stories. Amar Rav Yochanan Pamachas Achzani Bulmus. Once he said that he was gripped by this disease of bulmus. And I went to the eastern side of the tree. That with my wisdom I was able to keep my life. What does it mean going to the east side of the tree? Why? The Tani Rav Yosef, 5 lines into the wide lines, 2/3 of the way down. You want to eat a better flavored te'ena, a better flavored date, you should go to the east side of the tree. Going to that side of the trees because the sun has a better hit over there. It's an interesting, I don't know why that's true. Why would that be true? The sun rises for 6 hours going up from the eastern sky to the center point. And then for the next thing, I don't know why this seems to be from the Gemara, that it's a stronger sun rising in the east and it makes, or maybe it's not stronger, it just makes the food ripen at an appropriate rate. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi were traveling together. Achle bulmos the Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda got sick. And and he saw a shepherd, and he literally cleaned out his bread cabinet. He ate all of the bread. You took this, you tore this guy apart. You took everything that belonged to him. And then the story continues that Kimatu Lamasa, when they got to the city, the other one got the disease of bulmus. And then at that point, they gave him jugs and they gave him platters of honey and sweets and everything. So I'm like, Rabbi Yehuda, you were making fun of me. You pillaged the whole city of all of their food. Don't have a tie on me. You got everything out of them. The whole, the whole thing is a shvach argument because you need to do what you need to do. It's life and death. You don't mess around. Bulmus is a dangerous disease. The Surah of Meir, Rav Yehuda, Rav Yossi. This time we add in Rav Meir. The three of them were together. They were traveling together. Rav Meir Havadaik Bishma. Rav Meir, when he would meet someone, he would hear his name and he would make a decision about the person from his name. So here's what happened. And Rav Yehuda, Rav Yossi, Lo Havadaik Bishma. But in the two of them, Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi, they would not analyze a person's name when they met. So Kimatu La'ahu Duchta, they got to a city. They requested, where is an inn that we can stay in? Yavuluhu, they gave him an address to go stay at this hotel down the block. Amru lo, they said, Mashimcha, the three rabbis said to him, what is your name? Amar Luhu Kidor. The one man said to the three rabbis, the innkeeper, he said, my name is Kidor. Omar, Rav Meir says, and it said, Shma min Adam Rashahu. This guy is not Kishmak. Shenemar Kidor Tapuchos Hema, because the pasuk says Kidor was a Tapuchos Hema. That's not good. So he made a deal. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Ashlimu Leikisayu, and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, they were much more trusting. They gave over their wallets for Kidor to hold. Rav Meir lo Ashlam Leikisay. Rav Meir's like, I don't know. I'm making an inference about this guy's name, and he is not getting my wallet because Kidor Tapuchos Hema. He looks into the name. So then Azal Osve Be Kivre Avua. So I guess they buried the dead nearby. The father of the innkeeper was buried nearby. So Rav Meir put his money.
He buried it.
Ozal Osve Bekibre de Avuha.
He buried it by the grave of the person's father.
It must have been Shabbos. They couldn't keep it out.
There was Shabbos.
Right. But he didn't bury it.
He buried the purse by the person's father's grave.
He had to get rid of it.
But it says Ki Osve Be Kivre. It looks like he placed it. No. What does it say there?
Yeah. By the grave, he placed his purse.
By the grave of the person's father. Yeah. That was what was in my head. If it didn't come out of my mouth, sorry. What did I say? That he buried it?
No.
Oh. Okay, sorry.
Actually, look in the Bach. The Bach has a keeper.
He did bury it.
Keeper, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you have to hide it somewhere. They gave it to him to put it in his.
Oh, that's the Os Katan base here.
The mayor needed to put it somewhere.
Yeah, Bekada. He put it in a pitcher and buried it. Yeah, but from the Gemara, it just seems Ki Osve, he placed it there, just from the text of the Gemara. Either way, he put it in near the burial place of the innkeeper's father, and then he then Kidor had a dream that night. Tashakil Kisa, go get the money, Demanacha Resha Dau Gabra, which is right next to the head of this guy, referencing himself. The dead person's talking to his son in the dream. Lamachar, the next day, the innkeeper said, Amar Lui said to the rabbi, this is what I saw in my dream. When you have a dream, Mimasha. When you have a dream on Friday nights, those dreams are not reliable. He stayed there all day on Shabbos and he watched his purse all day to make sure that no one would take it because it was out in the cemetery. After Shabbos, he brought it back home. Lamachar, Amrulo, Havlon Kis. On the next day, Rabbi Meir was the one who had his money. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi said to Kidor, where's my money? Amar lehem lo hayud dvar me'olam. I never took your money. What are you guys talking about? Amar lehu Rav Meir, Amailo daikisu bishma. Why didn't you look at his name and see that his name wasn't a geshmak name? Kidor tapuchos hema. Amrulei, Amailo Amrson Mar. If you're worried about it, say something out loud. What do you you got this whole idea stuck in your head that you acted on it, but you didn't say anything to us about it. I'm just saying that there's what to be concerned about. I'm not saying there's a chazaka miamre that he's such a terrible person. I'm just saying it's a derech to look into a person's name. I'm sure this is more sophisticated than just the pasuk of Kidor Tapuchos Hema, because I'm sure everybody's name in one context or another isn't great. There's psukim that you could find that aren't always so good. Okay, anyways, Mashchuhu V'ashuhu v'ailuhu lechanusa. So he didn't want to give back his money. So they ended up getting him to come to the restaurant to drink a little bit. And chazu, when they got inside, it was a little bit brighter. And chazu talpeche asifame. They saw that there was some food on his mustache, and it was like a lentil soup type of food. And then they got this brilliant idea. Oh, Azlu v'yavu simana l'debi. So they went and they met with his wife and said, now we have a simon to speak to his wife. Shaklu l'kisai v'aisu. They went to the wife and they said, listen, we just met with your husband, and by the way, as a simon l'davar that you should know that he sent us, we know that you had lentils for dinner, because otherwise how would he have known? And then they got their money back. And then right after they got their money back, this guy woke up from his stupor. And he killed his wife. So it says the Gemara, Hainu detanya. This is what the Brisa means. That mayim rishonim he'echilu basar chazir. If a person's not careful with washing mayim rishonim, that's netilas yadayim. And if you're in a place where they distinguish the food that they give you based on whether or not you wash, so if you skip netilas yadayim, then the kosher food doesn't come to you, then you get chazir. And mayim achronim hargu es nefesh. And had this guy washed mayim achronim, right? The Meforshim say when you wash mayim achronim, you're also supposed to wipe off your face. You're supposed to clean off your mustache, look normal, look put together. So this guy clearly didn't do mayim achronim, and that's hargu es nefesh. So this is, of course, a big push for those who wash mayim achronim. Afal pi, there's a machlokas poskim within the Ashkenazim of whether or not it's mechuyav. Fine, Shita's in the Ramah and Shulchan Aruch, but nevertheless, that's what is quoted here in the Gemara. Ulu v'sof, and finally, Rabbi Yehud and Rabbi Yossi, they finally agreed to Rav Meir's concern about names. Ulu v'sof havadai kebishma. They were finally concerned about names. Kimat lahu besa deshmei Bala. Then they ended up going to this particular house, and the person's name was Bala. Lo aidu legabe. They wouldn't even go inside. Amrei shmami no rashahu dichsiv amar levala neufim. They learned from him, and they saw that the pasuk says it has the word Bala, and the same pasuk as neufim, those who are adulterers. So obviously that's not geshmak. So they finally learned a lesson from Rav Meir, and they started to be concerned about names. 3 lines from the bottom of the page. 2 dots. If a person gets bitten by a crazy dog, there are 5 things that are said about this dog. His mouth is always open, and his mouth always drools. His ears are bent over. His tail rests on his leg. He doesn't walk in the middle of the road, he walks on the sides of the roads. And a possible next one, that he barks, but it's not a bark that anyone can actually hear. Does it mean total silence? Does it mean quiet? Not clear from the Gemara. How does this dog become crazy? So women who are practicing incantations, they practice on the dog. We don't want to practice on the kids. We'll practice on the neighbor's dog. And then the dog gets a little bit crazy. Shmuel Amar, no, it has nothing to do with that. Ruach ra shore alav. This dog has a ruach ra that is shore on it. That's why it has all of these strange symptoms. My beinayu, what's the difference between whether or not we assume that the dog was a little bit of a shota because of kashfanios mesacha kosbo, that he had these incantations put on him, or ruach ra? The difference is turning to the top of pedal whether or not we kill the dog by throwing something from far as opposed to killing it with one's bare hands. Tanya Kavase de Shmuel, and the latter opinion of Shmuel on the very bottom of Pei Gimel Amud Beis, that in the middle of the line, he said it's ruach ra. That's a raya davar. You shouldn't touch the animal. You should kill the animal from afar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nehiyeh b'baro. If the dog brushes by you, you might be endangered. If he bites you, you're going to be killed. And if he rubs against you, that you're going to get endangered. What does that mean? What should you do? Take off your clothes and run. Bolt. Get away from that animal. Okay. Rav Huna bered Rabbi Yoshua chaf be chad minay b'shuka. There was one particular case where a rabid dog brushed up against him. Shalchin hu lamani b'rayt. He took up his clothes and ran. Omar kiyamti ba'asmi. I fulfilled the pasuk al chachma techayav ve'aleh. That because of my wisdom, I was able to maintain my own life. Fine. You take off your clothes and run. There's another example of this by shatnez. If you realize that you're wearing shatnez, take off your clothes. Afilu b'shuk. You take off your. Okay, how much clothes do you take off? Okay, that's a good question, but nevertheless. The nachis le'mais, what happens if you get bit by the dog? It says you're going to die. Ma'atzakante, how do we get out of that? 10 lines down. Peidal amar aleph amar abaye nesi mashcha de'apa dichra. You should take the skin of a type of an animal that's called a polecat, a male polecat, v'nichtov aleha, and you should write on the skin as follows. Okay, this is not practical medical advice. Okay, everybody ready? You should write as follows. Anaplanya bar Palnisa. My name is my name, Ben, my mother's name. And Amashcha de'apa, I'm writing on the skin of a polecat, dichra, that's male, ksiv na'alach, that I'm writing to you, kanti kalirus. So obviously, this would be normative medicine that you'd find on like WebMD when you start Googling things after you get bit by a rabid dog. The amrila, some say the incantation was slightly different, not that the first one was well understood. Kandi klurus, ka Hashem tzivakos amen amen sela. That is how one should get rid of the dog bite concern. However, we're not done yet. First of the long lines, you should take off your clothes and bury them for up to 12 months. Then you should take it out, and you should burn it in an oven. You should spread around the ashes at a crossroads. And during these 12 months of the year, after you've been bitten by that dog, when you drink water, lo lishte ela begufta denachasha. You should not drink water unless it's through a copper straw. We'll see the material isn't ma'akev. We'll see in a moment, but that's why that is what one should do. Dilma, because if you don't and you're drinking the water directly, dilma chazi bavoa. Maybe you'll see the shadow, the shida velistakin. You'll see the shadow of the shade that is near you, that is around you now, velistakin, and you will become endangered. Kiha de Abba Bar Marta. This is exactly what happened to Abba Bar Marta, who Abba Bar Minyumi is the same person. Abdulaima gufta dedava, and his mother made him a golden straw. So now you know the kids in school who bring a little straw with them in their lunch bag, they were bitten by a rabid dog. And that seems to be exactly what happened back. So first of all, straws are not new. Okay, the technology is old. And it was used at times when one was bitten by a dog because we were afraid of the shadim that were connected to this. I don't know what any of this means other than reading the words to you, but very interesting story. Says,
what would you do?
What?
Practically, what would you do?
If I got bitten by a dog that had all 5 of these simanim, I would do what I normally do and don't drink water. It seems to only be by water. It doesn't say, it says specifically water. I don't know if it's true by other liquids.
Yeah, I think right.
Anything that's
the idea is
reflective.
You'll see the shadow. If you have the cup like this, you'll see the shadow of the shade. If you have a long straw, you're not looking.
No, that I understand. I'm saying is it true about other liquids also? Coke, Diet Coke,
You can't really see a shadow. You can't see.
So the Harai should be drinking more soda. That's exactly what the inference of the Gemara is.
You already banned fish and
Banning fish and drinking Coke. It's a good start to the day. 1/3 of the way down. Pei Dalam Rav. Let's continue. V'od at the 2 dots. V'od Amar Rav Masya. That's an important line of the Gemara. We'll come back to this soon. Rav Yochanan Chash B'Tzafdina. We learned about this without its name on the previous Amud. It was referenced in our Mishnah, which was some type of mouth illness. So Azal Gabe Gaba Dahi Matruni. So he went to a particular woman in the community who knew what she was talking about. And of delay Milsa Cham Shomal Shabsa. And she helped him with some kind of medication on Thursday and Friday. Amar lo, he said to her, B'Shabbos Mai, what should I do on Shabbos? Amar le, lo tzrichas, you're not going to need it. And he's like, okay, but imitz terichna mai, if I'm still in pain, what should I do? So Amar le, ishtaba li de lo megalis. I want you to make a promise to me, Rav Yochanan, that you're not going to say anything. So fine, ishtaba, here was his language of his promise. Le'elaka de Yisrael lo maglina. I will not reveal it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Nafak Darsha B'Pirkai. He went right out of the room and gave shiur on the topic and said, by the way, if you ever have this disease, this is exactly the formula of what you're supposed to do. We'll learn what the formula is momentarily. He seemingly broke the shvuah. So it says the Gemara, V'hishtabala. Yochanan, he's a big tzaddik. What are you talking about? You can't just break a shvuah. I just said Goya. So what? You can't break a shvuah. You made a shvuah. It's a lashon shvuah. So it says the Gemara, Le'alaka de Yisrael. Le'alaka de Yisrael lo maglina, halam Yisrael maglina. It's a knetch. He says, I only made the promise to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, but the people are not, they're not a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So it says the Gemara, such a beautiful line. Come on. That's not right. That's not right. People are watching you. You're a Talmud Chacham. Anyone who wears a kippah, you're a Talmud Chacham. And every last blessed thing that we do in public is scrutinized. So, okay, fine. You got out of the halachos of Shavuah, but you didn't get rid of the Chilul Hashem of the Shavuah. So it says the Gemara, no. He spoke it out with her before he went public. As machlokes, if that's actually how to understand this piece of Gemara. Anyways, either way, he shared it with her knowledge. My avdaleh, what did she do for him? What was the actual medication that she made? So a bit of a machlokes. Amar Ravacha Breda Rabami Meseor, the water in which yeast sits, shemen zayis, oil, umelach and salt. Rav Yema Amar, it wasn't the water of yeast, it was yeast itself. So or gufe, shemen zayis, umelach, with oil and with salt. Rav Ashi Amar, no, mishcha de gadfa de avza. It was the fat of a wing of an avza, of a duck or of a goose, some type of small bird. Amar Abaye, Ona abdi lekul v'lo itzai. I tried all of these different iterations, different medications. It did not work. The Amar li ahutai, until somebody gave me a little bit more detail. Well, here's what you should do. Take everything that we said above. I see kashyasa disease. So you should take out the pit from a zayis, from an olive. The lo malutilsa, that is not yet a third developed. Uklinhu ben nura, and you should burn it in a fire with imra chadata, with a new garden hoe. Because of course, again, normative medicine in their day is not what we're used to. Whole different world. And you should take the results of it and you should stick it up against your gums. And Abaye tried that and it did work. How do you get this disease of safdina in the first place? If you eat wheat that's way too hot, just saying, the Gemara says, if you eat fish that's a day old, it's bad for you. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Herring is good.
You got this Mefurish Gemara on Pei Dalet and Maseches Yoma. Stop with the herring. Says the Gemara, my simone, what were the symptoms that a person might have had? That when he was eat something, by his gums, there would be a lot of blood. Fine. Rav Yochanan, 2/3 of the way down, a little bit more. Rav Yochanan, ki chash b'tzavdina, when he was sick with tzavdina, avad hachi b'shabbos of itse, and he did this even on Shabbos, and it was considered he was healed. So he violated Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan, Hechi Avirachi, how could he have done that? Says the Gemara, because it was dangerous. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Shani Tzaftina, Ho'el Maskil B'Peh B'Gomer B'Vnei Me'ayim. It moves throughout the body. It's a disease that moves around, and it can be very dangerous. Amar le Rav Chia bar Abba le Rav Yochanan Kiman. Who is he holding like in our Mishnah? Must be Rav Masya ben Charash. The Amar, because he says Hachoshesh B'Fiv Matilin Lo Sam B'Shabbos. You're allowed to take a medication on Shabbos, not Sam a medication. You can even be Mechal Shabbos. So that seems to be permissible. 10 lines from the bottom. Amar le She'ani Omer Bizu Velo Be'acheres. Here the Chachamim agree. Here is a little hard language to understand without the Mefarshim. Bizu. With this, the Chachamim agree with Rav Masya in regards to the Choshesh B'Fiv. They are concerned about this. Velo Be'acheres. He disagrees with Rav Masya in other areas. Lema Mesayeh. Maybe this will support the following. Misha'ach so Yirakon. A person has.
The one that says that about the dog liver.
That is going to come up literally right now. Lema misayele, exactly right. Maybe this matches up with the following source: Misha'achso yirakon, that a person who was sick with jaundice, ma'achilin oso basar chamor, you can give him donkey meat, which was apparently a commonplace solution. It's so interesting nowadays. Jaundice happens all the time. Feed babies, get them to go to the bathroom as much as possible. Give them some vitamin D. I've done brisses for families that were wrapped in LED blankets. And it wasn't LED, it was some type of heating lamp that you bring home. I've only seen it 1 or 2 times. One family wanted to get their bris on time. The counts were too high. The doctors would not let them have a bris. So we started the whole thing. Maybe we can get a blanket so the bris could be on time. I asked a bunch of shilas and I was told, stop, wait till the baby comes down on his own. Don't go crazy. It's okay. We'll push off the bris until the baby's healed. But back in the day, they ate basar chamor. Unbelievable. If a person were to have been bitten by a crazy dog, from one of its own liver lobes, that would have been normal. Like Hirsch was saying, that was his own shita. The Chachamim Omrim, vaguely, which we don't know what it means, Be'elu, Ein bahem mishum refuah. These don't have refuah. Be'elu, these don't have refuah. What were you excluding? L'mu'utei mai, my lav l'mu'utei sam. Aren't you excluding our case, which says that when you're choshesh b'fiv that matilin lo sam, says the Gemara, and therefore there'll be a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan would have no one to rely upon, because at least not the Chachamim. So it says the Gemara, lo l'mu'utei makizin dam l'sirunki. We're talking about a case where one is being makiz dam, their bloodletting, to avoid a disease which would cause for asphyxiation, which would cause for choking. L'srunki, it was some type of throat disease. It says the Gemara hachanami mistabra that it should be the case that it's mutter to take this medication that Rav Yochanan took on Shabbos because of the disease that was in his mouth of sfidna. To Tanya shlosh advarim am Rabbi Shmuel b'Rabbi Yossi sheshama mishum Rabbi Mati ben Charash. There are 3 things that the Brisa says that Rabbi Shmuel b'Rabbi Yossi heard from Rabbi Masya ben Charash. Makiz and dam l'srunchi b'Shabbos. This was the bloodletting for the sake of this choking disease. Umishanashko kelev shote ma'achilin oso mechatzar kaved shelo. And if someone gets bit by a dog, then he is allowed, we should feed that person from a lobe of that animal's liver. And there too, so again, the same question again on a similar brisa. What are you excluding here? My lab atarte basraisa ulemeute deresha. Don't you think the last two are what you are saying is okay, but lumeute to exclude the first one? So it says Gemara, no, atarte deresha kamaisa ulemeute the seifa. We're saying that the first two are the ones that are atarte deresha kamais. Right, the first two are fine, and the last one is not fine. But still, Rabbi Yochanan was allowed to use this medication. Top of Peidalat Amud Beis. Oh, we're gonna make it. Okay, good. So says the Gemara, top of Peidalat Amud Beis, Tashma. The Tani, Rabba Bar Shmuel, Ubra Shehiricha. Hold on one second, says the Gemara. We learned the other day that if a woman who's pregnant smells the smell of a food, a very strong smell, a desire that she needs to eat on Yom Kippur, so she should eat until she feels that she's satiated, or whatever tashuv nafsha means, that it was just enough food. Here too we see the quote that if a person gets bit by a dog, that we should feed them from one of the lobes of its liver. Here too we see the same thing. And there too the Chachamim omrim bezu velo be'acheres. It's the third brisa that references this, so we have to really understand this well. It says the Gemara, Bizu, when the Chachamim said Bizu v'lo ba'acheres, ahaya, what was that talking about? Where did the Chachamim agree with? Ubra, if you want to say it's talking about a woman smelling food, that's pshita. Ubra mi'ika lamanda amar delo. Everyone agrees that when it comes to a woman who is crazed by this smell that we feed her, absolutely we do. Ela lava sam shma mina. It must be that when he was saying Bizu v'lo ba'acheres, that the Chachamim agreed with her Masya ben Chorash. It must be that it was talking about the case of the son, the medication for the mouth disease, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan was appropriate and right to take this medication, Shma Mina. We're 10 lines down, Pei Dalad Amud Beis. Let's continue. Rabashi Amar Masnisa Nami Deka. This actually matches up with our Mishnah because it says Ve'od Amar Rav Masya ben Chorash Achoshesh Befiv Matilin Lo Sam B'Shabbos V'Lo Pligi Rabbanan Alei. He quotes his shita that he says it's permissible to take this medication and there's no bar plukta. V'im Isa de Pligi Rabbanan Alei. If you really thought the Chachamim were going to say something, they should have said something. Le Arvinhu V'Lisninhu V'Liflugu Rabbanan B'Seifa. Then just open your mouth and say something. No one's ever been bashful in Shas about sharing their opinions. Share it over here. Shma Mina. Must be that it's in fact the case that everyone agrees that when it comes to this drug that one has to take, you're burning things and the oils, everything you're doing is mutter when it comes to this disease of the mouth. Says the Gemara, so the Mishnah was very articulate. It says that it's a safek nefashos, and then it adds that a safek nefashos is mutter to be done on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, lama li sula meimar. Why does the Mishnah have to be so explicit to say, quote, the whole safek nefashos doches haShabbos? That's so obvious. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, because lo safek Shabbos zu vilvad amnu, ela afilu safek Shabbos acheres. Even if we're not talking about today's Shabbos, it's Saturday morning. Today is lav dafka going to be a sakanas nefashos. But next Shabbos might be life and death. Sakana, just a maybe. It's a suffix. What's the case? Hechidami, first of the long lines, 1/3 of the way down, Pedalat Amud Beis. Hechidami kigon de'imdu latmanya yomei. They gave him 8 days. Yoma kama Shabbos. And the first day was Shabbos, and the last day is going to be Shabbos. Ma'u detema le'akav ad orta. Maybe we should say, let's wait until Motzei Shabbos. Ki hechidol nechel aletrei Shabbos. This way we'll only violate one Shabbos. No, if there's any element of suffix, even though today is not your day of risk, but day 8 is your day of risk, which is also a Shabbos, the next Shabbos, Kamash Malon, that we violate even this Shabbos in order to ensure that person's safety. Tanya Namhelchi, the Brisa writes the same thing. We warm up water on Shabbos, the Chol of Shabbos. Bein lahashko. So whether it's for him to drink, bein lahavroso, or whether or not it's to give him some strength and to give him some to wash him, whatever it is. Below Shabbos zubilvad, and the Brisa says explicitly like our answer. Not just this Shabbos. Amru elo Shabbos acheres, even for another Shabbos. V'ein omren namtin lo Hashem anavi. We're not going to say maybe he'll heal. If it's suffix sakanas nefashos, everything is over. You're machal Shabbos. Elo machamen lo miyad mibnei shesafik nefashos doches haShabbos. V'lo suffix Shabbos zu elo afilu suffix Shabbos acheres. This cannot be done by people who are outside of the faith. Jews themselves should do it. They can do the malacha straight up, no problem at all. You don't need any messengers. There's a big machlokas rishonim how to understand this. Some say that women are excluded from being able to determine what is pikuach nefashos. The Ritva doesn't understand that way. Look at the words. The words have a double negative. We should not say Yasu dvarim halalu lo al pi noshim v'lo al pi kusim. Some say it's not that way. The women should definitely be included. Of course they should. Aval mistarf and the das acheres, but one way or the other, they're included in a second opinion if there needs to be a second opinion. This goes back to the other day.
Al pi as opposed to al yadeh. The first one we're talking about is do it yourself because you can't trust anybody else. Al pi is where they're saying they have a problem, or they're saying there will be a medical problem.
First one is Ela al yadeh gedolei Yisrael. They should do the action.
Drive to the hospital.
The Jew should drive to the hospital. Okay. The second one is saying, do we listen to her?
Exactly.
Correct. Right. Correct. That we want. Do we listen to her? No, that's machlokas rishonim how to understand this line of the Gemara. The Ritva understood the way that makes more sense in our world. I don't know what the other version was. Not very well, at least. Fine. That brings us to the two dots. That brings us to Tana Rabbanan halfway down. We have a little bit more time. Let's get down a little bit closer to the bottom of the page, and then we'll stop. Tana Rabbanan. We said mefakchen pikuach nefesh b'Shabbos. We can mefakchen esagal was our Mishnah that you can move things around, whatever is necessary on Shabbos. V'hazaris harezim meshubach. And the faster you move, the better. You're not frum for waiting. If there's an emergency or a suffix of an emergency, you instantly turn a corner and you break Shabbos laws right and left as needed. You don't need to be frivolous. You don't need to take advantage. You just need to do exactly what needs to be done, but don't hesitate. I remember taking out Salakal in YU, and I remember some guy reached for the light switch on Shabbos with his elbow, and someone smacked his elbow and flipped up the light switch. It was mamash this Gemara. Hareza meshubach. Stop messing around. There's people's lives on the line. This is not the time to be frum, or I should say, this is the time to be frum, and you should be mechal Shabbos. That is the mitzvah. Hareza meshubach. Ve'in tzarich litol reshus bezdins. Don't run to the rabbi's house. Do whatever you need to do. Haketzad, what's the case? Ra tinok shenaf aliyam. A child falls into the water, so then immediately poresh mitzudum aleu. Cast a net. The harez of Azaris harez meshubach. Wonderful, you did good. Ve'in tzarich litol reshus mi bezdin. Ve'afal gav to go side kavre. You're going to even trap some fish. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No one should be thinking about that at this point in time. It's an emergency. Another case, we're going to ask why we need more than one case. A child falls down into a pit. So oker chulia, you can take out the rim of the pit. This wasn't Isser Daraisa, we'll see in a moment. The faster you move, the better. Even though that when you pulled out the rim, you created a step, which was it's boneh. You're not allowed to do that. But by pulling out the ring was sitting on an indentation in the ground. So when you pulled it out, you created a step type of system. Isser Daraisa, don't even think about it. Third case, you saw that a door was broken. You saw that a child was locked inside a room. Shovra umotzio. You break the door down. Just plow right through. Work quickly. You don't have to ask anybody. Even if you're planning to break it in a way where the wood should be used later for firewood, right? So, okay, that's fine. We don't care. Next case, you can sometimes extinguish and you can always prevent fire from transferring from one place to another. From fire, good for you, put out the fire. You don't have to ask. Even if you're going to be smoothing out what is in front of you for later use for burning. Doesn't make a difference. Still, mutter b'mutter. That might be an issue deraisa, but we overlook that. But tzricha, why all of these cases? Because the yeshmuin and yam. If we would have only had the case of the water, mishum de'adahachi v'hachi azale, because the water flows and the child Rahman al-Islam would move with the water. Therefore, we would assume you would have had to move aval. Therefore, you should do the issur deraisa of trapping. Aval bor deka yasiv. No, there the child is sitting at the bottom. He's not going anywhere. So there we might have said, "Emalo, you should not violate Shabbos." Tzricha. Therefore, we added that case to ensure that you should know that even if, as long as they're unreachable, they're in a pit of any kind, you can be mechal Shabbos. V'yashmuin bor mishum dekamavis. I mean, you might say that a pit can be very scary. Aval ninina ladelas. The fact that a child locked the door on you, he could be sitting on the other side of the door laughing at you that you're freaking out. He's fine, she's fine. After the yossi b'hai gisa, he'll be sitting on the other side of the door. Mishabish le'ba'am guzi. He's playing with a game of parcheesi. The happiest kid in the world. He doesn't need anything. Tzricha doesn't make a difference. Door's locked, you break in. Is that right? Yeah, we're going to stop right here at tzricha. All right, we got a lot done. Baruch Hashem. We'll stop right here. We'll pick up tomorrow night with Daf Pei Hey, and then only a couple nights left. Thursday night, see him at Mark's house. The link to sign up is all-daf.org/siyum. Everyone should please sign up. You do not need to pay, but we do need you to sign up because there's only a maximum number of seats. Kol hakodem zocha. Wishing you all a beautiful night.
When is it?
This Thursday, 8 p.m. This Thursday, 8 p.m. A little earlier.
Maybe you copy, maybe you didn't.